Okay. So, got less people now, but who uses Appeagle? Okay, 1 out of everyone. Okay, so to briefly explain why we use Appeagle over other repricers is we found that their format is easy to use and their results have been stronger than other repricers out there. So Be Cool, many of our clients have used Be Cool, then switched to Appeagle and saw a boost in sales. Many people went from Appeagle to Be Cool and saw a decrease in sales. Other people use Excelco or Celery or Feedvisor, which all work fine but can be sometimes expensive, and we've had good success with Appeagle. There's minor issues here or there, but every software has that. And I'm just going to walk through quickly just how we have our strategy set up. You don't have to mimic this exactly, obviously, but it's just how we built ours. So with Appeagle, there's a lot of different pre-made strategy types. So there's one that's called Get the Buy Box, which is they call Algorithmic. Basically, how they say is the algorithmic strategy allows you to compete exclusively with the buy box offer while ignoring all other sellers, not recommended for eBay. From what I've heard also is that this can be super aggressive because it's competing with just the buy box. Sometimes if Amazon's on the listing or there's, I don't remember if you have the opportunity to really choose how it actually reprices against the buy box. I believe since it's algorithmic, they can price lower by a high percentage just if it's within your min and max parameters just to get you in the buy box, which in that case, there can be massive price drops from what I've heard from a lot of people. Pre-configured, these ones aren't bad. We kind of mimic a slight version of these, and I'll walk through that in our own custom build. No software that's like a website or a download program is going to be free. Some Chrome extensions may be free, but anything that does anything that's powerful is not going to be free. So the first rule we have is the competition type. So the different types are either compete against all competition, only FBA competition, merchant fulfilled, FBA then merchant fulfilled, buy box, or then FBA then buy box. For a long time, we used FBA then buy box. I think I switched this recently to do all, maybe like 6 months ago or so, just to see how it would change things. But FBA then buy box is useful because you're ignoring merchant fulfilled competition if you want to, unless they're in the buy box. So you'll be have more control over your FBA competition, granted. But if you do all, it's just going to be you're competing against everybody. Many people I know use FBA then merchant fulfilled, which means that it'll prioritize the FBA competition before competing against merchant fulfilled. Or if there's no FBA, then it'll compete against merchant fulfilled, that kind of idea. And then we have choose how to reprice. So they changed the wording recently, which is good, because this was kind of unclear, but it always meant that if you don't enable these two different options, actually, let me go back real quick. I think, because I clicked on this before, so it reset accidentally. Just give me 1 second to go back. Yeah, so I didn't change it at all. I think maybe I played with that for a few days. So if you don't specify or enable compete differently against FBA or compete differently against Amazon, this will be how you compete against everybody or whoever you specified in this earlier stage, which means that you can choose to match the price above or price below. So if you decide to enable different pricing strategies against FBA and Amazon, this will default to be just against merchant fulfilled. So assuming you're competing against merchant fulfilled, if you chose all or FBA then merchant fulfilled or merchant fulfilled is in the buy box, this will be how you compete against them. So you can choose to price match them or price above them. Many of our clients do price above because they know you'll probably get the buy box at a higher price if you're FBA versus a merchant fulfilled seller. So many of them will price above by either, let's say 1% or 2% or a specific dollar value, maybe by $1 or $2. And some of them also just match them as well. But if you're ignoring merchant fulfilled, this won't apply at all. Next, we have compete differently against FBA. We match FBA price. because we want to be as competitive as we can without triggering a race to the bottom or a race to our minimums. Many clients do price above and do 1 cent, so they'll do like 0.01. So at any time, they'll be above the lowest FBA price. So unless the competition lowers their price, that's when you'll match them. But you'll just be within the same range, though. We like to match them, though. Compete differently against Amazon. So this is we found it's likely that Amazon won't price match you if you're within 3% of their price. That's not necessarily true. And also this strategy was set up a long time ago, so I don't know exactly if it's validity anymore. But we still do that just because we want to have an edge on Amazon if we're competing against them. And as long as it's within our minimum and maximum price range, or rather more so our minimum range, there's no reason why we wouldn't keep this enabled, because if we match them, they're just going to own the buy box. And if we're undercut them by 3%, we may have the buy box. And if they do price match us, it'll just, it'll cause that price war, and there's nothing really we can do about it. But that's sometimes what we try to do when we're competing against Amazon. Yeah. We undercut them by 3%. It automatically does it. It'll just keep going down by 3% again until it reaches our min. If they happen to match you, it's likely they may not price match you at that price point. I haven't been tracking it as much as we used to see, because I'm not looking at our inventory at that level anymore. But we found that there are times that we lowered our price by that amount, and Amazon stayed at their price, and we were either on the sidebar or sharing the buy box. It's just another way to, and even so, there's going to be some time delay before Amazon maybe price matches you anyway, so you may as well try to have the buy box as much as possible. Yeah. No, that's fine. These are 4 questions. Yes. I'll talk about that after. Yeah. So when there's no competition, we like to use our maximum price, because if we set our max price as either the list price or MSRP or the most we think someone will sell it for, and we're the last FBA seller on the listing and it jumps to our max price, we can maximize our profits on that if we set our maximums right. So there's a lot of products that we have in our inventory that are at our max price, and many times I'll run reports to see, oh, how are these selling? Are these selling at these higher prices? And if they're not, I'll lower the max price and force it downward. Instead of, because lowering your min price when your product's at the max price is not going to do anything. So at the very least, having this option to sell it at your maximum price, you want to make sure you set your maximum price to be reasonable. Just because if you are the last seller, you want to have that, you want to be in the buy box at a reasonable price for the customer to buy it. Then we have when the competition matches your, when the competition is below your min price, or when the competition matches your min price. So the options here are you can either ignore them, don't reprice at all, use min or use max. We want to use our min because we want to at least stay competitive enough. So if the competition is below our min, we want to still be in the running. If we just ignore them, there's no shot that we're going to make that sale. The logic behind doing ignore and do not reprice is that maybe someone dropped the price temporarily and they're going to sell out, and then we're going to match them, and then we're going to be stuck at the lower price when they sell out. That kind of logic works for Q4, but doesn't really hold, because I've spoken to a lot of clients who tested this out, and then later they're saying, oh, why is my buy box percentage so low now, or why am I not getting sales? And we take a look. We change it, and their buy box percentage just increases immediately, because this is just ignoring competition for no reason. You're more likely going to run into situations where there's competition lowering their price, then a price to drop, then bounce back up, unless there's very specific products you're looking at. So as a general rule, using your min here is fine. If anything, if you want to be more careful with those types of products, you can set your minimums higher for a certain time, in a certain amount of days, when it's for let's say the first 30 days or the first 60 days maybe. And this one will default to this when these are both at min. Then we have this rule. This rule is kind of tricky, because this is the one thing that Appeagle gets kind of iffy, or gets a little bit mixed up with. It says don't lower my price when I'm in the buy box, which is great, because if you're in the buy box and competition undercuts you to get the buy box and you're still in the buy box, it'll hold your price higher, which is usually more of the trend on Amazon. But it's supposed to raise your price to match the lowest FBA competition. But I've seen many times, and from our clients as well, having this enabled will often leave your product at the buy box price, even if there's FBA competition higher than you. So it doesn't raise it even though it's supposed to. So I think it's having it enabled is still useful because there's more situations where the FBA competition is going to undercut you. So you may as well want to maximize your time in the buy box at your current price versus the amount of time you're going to have FBA competition higher than you and you're in the buy box. And even so, you're still going to be in the buy box. So it's still not really a negative unless you're losing money on that sale, which in case you probably should set your mins more careful anyway. So we have this enabled. Some of our clients use seller rating. We don't at the moment, but you can ignore competition that has a certain number of, certain percentage of positive feedback. So I know one of our clients does 80%. So anyone with less than 80% positive feedback, they just won't compete against them, which serves well because if there's other sellers that do have feedback above that and they're matching the other one, you're still going to be competitive with those sellers. But if you're on the listing alone with another seller, you may still get the buy box at a higher price because you have better metrics than them. But we don't use it currently because we're just ignoring competition. Whereas, because maybe that person still gets the buy box, or maybe that person is, like I said before, bringing other competition down. So I don't think it serves such a great purpose, but it still can be useful if you just want to ignore certain sellers. Some people I know do 50%, so you're just ignoring the worst. But at the end of the day, they're probably not going to get the buy box anyway because of their metrics. Then we said, you're going to keep this disabled. We have 2 sellers accounts, and we usually don't buy the same products, but we ignore our other accounts. So we were able to set that up. This was set up actually before I started here also, but you can create a seller list based on that seller's ID. But generally, you'll keep that disabled. Then you have handling time and backorder competition. So you can enable this and ignore competition if they have, let's say, more than 5 days lead time or any of these options. So that way, because if someone's selling something and they have a long lead time, a customer may be inclined to look for other options and then buy from a faster shipping rate. So you can ignore them because you may get a higher price because you can expect sellers will look for you if that's the case. So I know some people do 5 days or a week, which is fine. Not necessarily. That's why we have ours disabled. But sometimes if there's good merchant filled sellers, or if maybe Amazon is like backlogged, and that includes that's where we come to the backorder competition as well. If they have it in stock but it's not available yet, so you can enable that. So you'll have the option. It'll say, oh, it ships Prime, but will ship within the next 5 days or something like that because Amazon's backed up. Usually this happens during Q4. So if you exclude them, same kind of idea. Customer may look for you. You can have a higher price, and they'll get it sooner. One of the last ones we have here is featured sellers only. Enabling this setting allows you to compete with only merchants who qualify for buy box placement. So we have this enabled. This kind of conflicts if you have the option to compete against merchant filled if the merchant filled sellers are not eligible for the buy box. So you're competing differently against merchant filled will be overridden by this option because you're ignoring them if they're not eligible for the buy box. So we still have this enabled because this will also kind of take care of the sellers with bad feedback and ratings anyway. And we'll just be competing with the other FBA sellers that will be competing for the buy box. And we're obviously not going to exclude Amazon because we have a rule specifically for Amazon. And this one they added recently, but we don't sell used items. But if you sell used items, you can compete against used items in your condition or better, or all used items. So you're never competing with the lower condition, which can be really good if you're doing used products, because then your prices will be more consistent with the condition you're at. And then there's how do you set your minimum and maximum prices? I like that they added these new profit-based, but they have to fix their formulas. I'm not going to go too into detail right now, but they're not calculating correctly. But you can say, I want a specific dollar value minimum, and it'll automatically set your mins where that's going to be based on the fees. But the dollar value minimum doesn't make sense because your cost of goods varies based on product. So having, let's say, a $10 minimum may not make sense if you're buying like a Nike pair of socks that you buy for $6 to sell for 18, or to maybe sell for 15 or something like that, where after fees, you're not getting that profit back anyway. So that doesn't even make sense there, especially if you have products that you're buying, let's say for more than $50, you don't want to set your minimums too low, because a net profit of $5 or $10 on a $50 cost price or a $100 cost price is, a 5 to 10% return, or, which doesn't really help you at all. So profit-based min doesn't make sense. They have another option in here where they do percentage-based, but it's not ROI. They actually do margin percent, which is your net profit divided by the total sale price, not even including fees. So it really, I sent a ticket to them a while ago, like asking if they'll update it, never got a response back. But I just, when I went through this, when I first came out this, the math was completely off. Formula-based is okay, because there are formulas that exist out there that you can create within the system that'll roughly get you a 30% or 50% ROI, depending on what your criteria is. It's just harder to calculate out because of the fees are going to be different for each thing, for each item. And this won't include the fees because you'll have to estimate the fees. So it doesn't exactly work out in the right way. Which is why I like building your own, because we can get, or with certain reports, we can get exactly which fees we want and set our minimum maximum prices to be exactly where we want them to be. And even so, if we do this gives us the option to do bulk operations where we can import our mins and maxes in bulk, which also allows us to, if you come up with let's say I have a spreadsheet template on the matrix that is geared from Scoutify to Appeagle, where you can just copy and paste your buy list onto that sheet and drag the formula down, and it'll roughly calculate a 30% ROI minimum, and we can customize it to be whatever you want it to be. But if you want to change pricings down the line, and let's say 30, 60 days go by, you want to update your prices in bulk, instead of just lowering your prices, you can just update the formula or like put those items on that template, update the formula, and then have like a 15% ROI or a break-even price, because you can just take that same information, the same sheet, and just work off that instead of having to, just undercut randomly. And then there's going to be a review. It's just going to go through all the rules you went through before, and you hit confirm and then apply. So those are the strategies, or at least how we have our strategy set up. Now, someone asked before about how we tier prices downward in time. So the way I work with Appeagle, I do everything in bulk in Excel. So I'm just going to download from here all available fields as their main report, where it just gives you everything you have in their database. And they communicate with Seller Central, so they're grabbing your SKUs from Amazon anyway. So they have your initial prices. They have when they were listed. Give it a second. It's taking a while to download. But the good thing about using things in bulk is that you can add notes on the products. You can add you can add your suppliers in the notes field, or memo field rather. This is merchant filled quantity. It has your live FBA quantity. I'll zoom in a bit. Has your live inventory, has the ASIN, has a memo field, which I usually use for the sourcing method and the date purchased. So I'll show that in a second. So for example, I have the supplier for wholesale and the date purchased, just so I can keep track of how long these approximately have been at Amazon. We used to use our SKU to code the sourcing method and the date received in our warehouse, but since we switched to using the ASIN as the SKU, I had to come up with this new system. So I use this to just track the inventory. So if I need to reprice down the line, if things are still in stock or things are, not selling, I can see, well, if these have been bought from this supplier on this date, they probably got to Amazon within a month or so. If it was OA, it's probably a few weeks. If it's ROA, it's probably within that week. If it's wholesale, it may have been, wholesale I treat a little differently. I do the date it was received at Amazon, or the date would be sent to Amazon rather, the month I should say, just so I can easily track that more easily. Has the title. Groups we haven't used, but I know some sellers that do this. You can group your inventory into separate categories. I don't think it's necessary, because you can put similar types of products together. It can be useful to sorting inventory if you want to set different strategies for different categories maybe. You can put them into groups. So you can put a group name and then the group inventory. I don't remember exactly what goes in this field because it's been a while since I looked at this. But Appeagle has a support ticket, and they have their help desk, which can show exactly how to do this too. I just forgot because I haven't used it in years. Marketplace ID, this is going to be unique to your seller account. So whenever you and I have this on the Appeagle template, your marketplace ID has to be on the sheet in order to update your min and maximum price. If you don't have this filled out, or if it's filled out incorrectly, it won't make any changes. So if you want to do bulk operations, you need to have the marketplace ID in there. And if you want to update your cost of goods in here, you need to have the currency field as USD. Otherwise, it won't map this incorrectly. Minimum, maximum price, current price, which is, as it states, it's your current price right now, or if it's, or the last price it was at before it sold. Shipping only applies to merchant fulfilled. This is the current shipping price. I'm going to delete that because we don't do merchant fulfilled. Manual price. Manual prices are good because you can override the min and max price by putting a manual in. So if you want to hold a price steady at a certain point in time, or if you know you want to keep a price at a specific place because maybe sellers are going to sell out and you want to have a higher price, you can set a manual price and it won't reprice until you remove it. Original price is what it was listed in Seller Central as. Map price, this won't change anything, but if you have a wholesale vendor that has map pricing, you can put that in here as reference. You know that, oh, I shouldn't lower my min prices because I have a map price. And that's a good way of tracking that. Handling days only applies to merchant fulfilled. Listing type will just specify if your current listing is FBA or merchant fulfilled. And strategy ID. If you have more than one strategy, you can copy that strategy ID into the report and assign it to the listings in here as well. It's just a reference. It won't actually change anything. So what people do sometimes is they'll set their map price the same as the minimum price, just so you know. And if you need to price down the line, let's say, not. So maybe let's say another seller undercuts the competition and they're breaking map pricing and you don't want to break map and you want to make, you can set your minimum map price, and having the map price here lets you know, oh, I shouldn't lower my price because that's where I have to be. And then strategy IDs here. So I'm going to show really quickly how the bulk template works, because I actually use it differently than I have in the videos, and I'm not going to go too detailed at the moment on that. This is the wrong thing. Here, Appeagle buy list template. So the way that this works is if you have a Scoutify buy list. Here's a good example. I have one here already. So same thing like Seller Engine. The template's going to be saved on your computer as a template or as an Excel file. You have your marketplace ID here, and these yellow fields should be consistent. You shouldn't change these once you save your template. So you can take your buy list, same thing as before, copy the data, or at least copy the relevant data. So you only really need up to your price. So you copy ASIN, title, cost, and price, because you don't need quantity for that for the repricer, because they are grabbing from Seller Central. You don't need dates. Suppliers, maybe if you're going to use the memo field. But just for the use of this example, you copy and paste here, and the formulas are built in. Currently, this is roughly estimating a 30% ROI for clothing at the moment, and the max price is currently set to be $5 plus the original price. You can also set this as the list price if you want to, but you just kind of drag these down. Make sure this copies this number, because it looks like it created a number series. So you can just copy this and then paste over that if you need to. So then this is now setting your mins and maximums for you. And one thing you want to check before uploading this is your min price lower than your max price? Because there's going to be times that the 30% ROI minimum may be higher than your initial price, because whatever list price you put it in accidentally. Maybe you put the list price and the list price is 25% ROI. Who knows? But so you can look at a glance and just say, well, is this number lower than this? I like just doing this. I just like doing the difference of, max price less min price, and then it tells me what the difference is. And if this number is negative, I know that I have to change it. So let's say this was $15. I'll see that's a negative and be like, oh, that's wrong. Another way of doing it is I can say, is this greater than, or rather, sorry, is min price less than max price? And if it's true, I'm good. If it's false, it's either equal to or above, and if it's equal to, that's fine as well. You just want to, that's why I like doing the subtraction, because I get to see, oh, how wrong is it, at the very least. And then I can just make the changes manually on the sheet. Yes?
Do you just avoid ever
No, because Seller Central's min and max don't really do anything except keep your price active if your selling price is between the min and max. It'll never reprice your inventory. It's just there so it doesn't deactivate it. So about like a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago, Amazon came out with the price alerts. I'm sure everyone's seen. And that they did that to benefit you. They don't want your price to be too high based on the average selling price or too low. So like, hey, look at this. This is wrong. Fix this. So if you set your mins super low and super high, as long as your price falls within them on Seller Central, it won't get deactivated. So just you want to make sure you're setting your prices right, which if you're listing at the buy box price at the time of purchase, it should be right, or the list price on it, or the MSRP.
So you've never even, I'm sorry, like I haven't used the price.
Sure.
But you never even used them.
Not for pricing. I mean, we've only ever updated them if our prices got deactivated, if our products got deactivated. So we've just added in like $3 and $600 as the min and max because our price is never going to be outside of that. Yeah.
That way it never shows up.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So okay, so the next step is same as before with Seller Engine. Go to File, Save As, and this time we're going to save as a CSV. You can call this test. I'm just going to save this as test. Appeagle. And you don't have to close it for Appeagle. But from in the same page where you can download, you can upload your changes, find the file, upload, and it'll show if it's completed or not. Now, you can get failed invalid import file. If you get this, you can download the error file, and they'll tell you what the error was. Now, up until like a week ago, if you had a failed error, it wouldn't take the list at all. It would just won't upload until you fix the error, which was good because in case you made a big mistake, you can catch it and fix it really quickly. But it was annoying because let's say you had a minimum price that was lower, that was greater than your maximum price. If you've had that failed error, it'll tell you, hey, failed, fix your sheet, and then you can upload everything else. What they came out to be last week is that if you have an error, it'll still upload every record that's successful, and then to give you the error file so you can see, oh, hey, this was wrong, fix these things, and you only need to upload or fix those errors, or you can just upload it again, but it'll still make the changes for you. I don't know why it's not letting you download the error file. There's usually a button under here that says error file, I guess because this is maybe a week old or so, or a few days old. Or maybe it was on my computer. I don't know. I actually don't know why it's not showing. I'll send it to ticket to them. But they'll tell you exactly, in row this, minimum price has to be lower than maximum price, or a cost column is needed to update your or a currency column is needed to update your pricing. And the reason why that's important is that Appeagle is very, very specific about the column headers, because if this says original price and it's like spelled incorrectly, it won't map it incorrectly. If this is cost, or if this is let's say paid price, it won't map it incorrectly. It has to be exactly these column headers for Appeagle to map it into their system, which is why I have the template built that you never have to change the column headers. You just have to put the data on here. So,
did you start out by saying that you use your file?
So with this way, you can, yeah, this is built for the Bible. This template is built, okay, I'm gonna explain. This template is built to be used from the buy list as long as you copy in whatever your SKU is going to be into here, your title, cost, and original price. And you can change these formulas up if you want to. Like, for instance, this is currently, the way this formula is built, I'm just going to zoom in a bit. Okay, it didn't make this any bigger. So just deal with it. This is set to say roughly a 30% ROI. If you want a 50% ROI, you can just change this to 1.5 instead of 1.3. And I'm currently estimating the FBA fees at $3.50. You can change them to $5 if you have larger products, because this is just an estimation here, and it's based on your cost price. If I change my cost price to formula updates to roughly get that as well. So, and I have it nice that it rounds to the nearest whole number and subtracts by 1 cent. So you have like $14.99 or this and that. If you want to do 95, you can just subtract by 5 cents at the end or something. So it's customizable in whatever you want it to be, but just know it's estimating a certain ROI based on the fees that we're not grabbing the fees from Amazon. How am I on time right now? Over. Okay. So we'll end it then.
How do you handle
How do I handle
inventory?
Old inventory. Okay, I'll briefly talk about that.
You know,
yeah.
inventory age, how do you change that?
Yes. So I'll show that real quick.
That's the whole reason I came to that.
So there's two things I like to run first. Under the reports section, there's either listings that don't have the buy box or competition below min reports, and I treat those very similarly. Because if I download this list, it'll give me all the examples of where the competition is lower than my minimum price, which means I'm not competitive enough, which means I should update my minimum prices. The frustrating thing that Appeagle hasn't changed yet is they don't have the rest of the fields we had from Appeagle. So what I do is a little kind of, well, it's an Excel formula. I'll download all available fields first. So like I showed it before. And I don't want to spend too much time on the specifics of it. So I'll download all available fields. And I'll just I'm going to do a VLOOKUP formula. And again, I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but basically I'm just going to search for the SKUs on the competition below min report. And I'm going to grab the competition price. So if it says this #NA, that means this SKU was not found on that sheet, which is fine. That means it's not in that report. So if I just drag this down or double click this down, and then I resort the sheet to show me all the products that are on the report. Anything that has a number here, if you give it a second. I'm fairly certain I do, but if not, we'll schedule something to do it. Because I know I've written instructions for it. I definitely have a VLOOKUP formula in the Excel module, and I believe I speak about my process in the bulk operations, in the Appeagle bulk operations video. But in any means, I now have my list of what products are on that competition below min report, and that's where the memo field comes in. Because then if it's newer inventory, if it's stuff that I'm tracking, I know at least how long it's been there approximately, in which case I can determine, well, do I want to lower my prices on these? Can I afford to lower my prices? Or were these bought within the last month, in which case I'm going to keep my prices where they're at. So I can look at my memo field and say, well, here's old Amazon flips, or here's stuff that was sent in November, here's stuff that was sent in January, here's stuff that was sent in February. So February I'm gonna not even gonna touch because the first 30 days. And I can see if it's retail arbitrage or online arbitrage. If I go to the bottom, let's say, here's RA buys from December, here's RA buys from November, things like this. So I can get an idea of which products I need to address. Now, another thing you want to consider is how much are you willing to undercut? Are you just going to match the buy box price? What ROI do you want to go to? So if you set your ROI to, let's say, a 30% ROI minimum initially, you can just take these items, put them on that template that I showed before, change the formula up. I think I closed the template accidentally. But change the template to be, let's say you want to do 15% for the next 30 days. Even if it's not matching the competition, you want to tier it down. Change your formula on that sheet, copy and paste these SKUs on there, and with your cost and original price on there, and then you can actually delete the max price from the template if you don't want to change the max price. You just only have to update the minimum price. So there's a lot of ways you can do that. I think another thing to look at is even the products that are in the buy box, because we're talking about inventory age specifically. We want to look at products that are older that you want to change prices. So like I was saying earlier when I started the session, there can be items at your max price that aren't selling. So if you look at, let's say, inventory lab reports, and you look at to see maybe, the inventory age report I was showing earlier, and you see these items haven't sold in X amount of days. You take a look at them and you see, oh, these are at my max price. You can download even listings that have the buy box, and you can search these and say, well, how many units sold in the last 30 days or last 60 days? And if that number is 0, then you can change your prices and do a manual price to override it, change your max price to drop it down, or change your min price. There's a lot of things you can do.
Are you with the inventory agent one that just lets you set out an inventory?
That's on Seller Central.
I know which one that is. Is there a way that one can pick up, say, off of Appeagle or not?
Not directly, but what you can do, yeah, the end result's going to be VLOOKUP. If you have a report you can download from Seller Central with inventory age, you can isolate the items that are older and then do the VLOOKUP from that report to see how long these have been there, or like these have been here from, let's say, 180 to 365 days maybe. So there's ways of doing it.
But
It's
almost better when you're using Appeagle to have something that not
yeah. That's why I like to do that, because at a glance I see these have been here approximately this age. I'm going to lower my prices based on that. Yeah. Yes. The memo field, if it's on the buy list and you have a new memo for it, it will override because it's the same SKU. So unless you do a different SKU for each time you buy it, it'll update the memo field. Or you just don't update the memo field and leave it, but yeah, it will override.